Sounds good. All right. We are live on Facebook and we are recording on Zoom. And I appreciate everybody joining us for the premiere episode of the Neuro Bros Show. So I just want to give you a little backstory on this. Russ and I have known each other for a few years. Russ, I'll introduce him in a minute. He's a gentleman who's a very, very good friend. He's an amazing person, trainer. He also lives with Parkinson's. I wrote a Parkinson's course because my clientele has been people with Parkinson's for many years. And I'm a geek and a nerd. And I don't watch the Super Bowl. I read books about brains instead. And if you watch the Super Bowl, that's totally cool, man. It's just that I'm a geek and I'm a nerd. I'm self-deprecating at times. So that's how I have fun and get through my life. Anyways, so I got a text the other day from Russ saying, hey, we should do a thing. Remember Click and Clack? Yeah, I used to listen to them all the time on the radio, the two brothers who were mechanics from the Boston area. Actually, I have a friend of mine who went to see them once. They stopped in at the garage and they got to talk with them. They are really working on cars there. So it was, we just put this together very quickly. But, this will be an ongoing thing. The day of the week and the time of the day, it's yet to be determined, and maybe how many times per week. We have no idea, but what we do know is we're here now. It's Monday. It's 10 a.m. Eastern time, and we're bringing you, the goal is to bring you education and have fun doing it, and to also have you ready to move a little bit and try some things. Up front, well, let's go back a minute. So I wrote a course called Parkinson's Regeneration Training, and I'm not advertising, I'm just saying, the book is also called the same thing. Russ wrote a really nice piece for the book. Another book comes out soon. Russ and his wife both wrote for that book too. But the course I've taught all over the world, and Russ has traveled a lot with me and taught with me. And we've had some really beautiful experiences, and it's been very inspiring. We meet people like Laura Almost. We met, it's going on 2 years ago. Laura, welcome. We were in Austin, Texas, and Ruben was with us. You, Ruben, and me. Ruben's another person who teaches for us. And we just had a great time and a great group there. And so we've met people all over the place who inspire us. We learn from them. They learn from us. We all learn from each other. That's what it's about. So we're going to bring you information and concepts, small doses at a time with each episode of this Neuro Bros Show. So, before I start in, Russ, what I'm going to start off with, because I think it'll make for a better learning experience for people, is a bit, maybe 5 to 8 minutes about neuroplasticity. And that's it. Real simple. But before I do that, and I have 4 or 5 slides to show on that, welcome, Russ.
Thank you.
Hermano de otra neuron.
Buenos dias.
My brother from another brain cell. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to this. I think we're going to have fun with it because I was thinking of a lot of things that we could do that will fill some gaps. And Karl and I have been just talking, even just the last couple of days. We were like, yeah, we could do this, we could do that. I was thinking, we could talk about myth busting, things like that, and misconceptions. Because a lot of the online content that you see are like online classes, and that's just like a workout or a presentation on a particular topic. But I think we're going to bring to you, some like think outside the box type things, some anecdotes, and a lot of it's science-based stuff too. But it'll be fun.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the other thing too is this will be somewhat of a loose format, just like Click and Clack, right? But we do have an agenda. The agenda is to help people. But like I do in my sessions, I know Russ does, and what we do when we teach together in different areas, when we used to be able to actually see other humans in person, well then, Karen, hey Karen, my new books came in, by the way, so I'm going to ship yours out today, just to let you know that. I haven't forgotten you, they came in. So bottom line is, when we used to teach together, we would gamify and just have fun doing things. Parkinson's, we know, is a neurodegenerative disorder, a movement disorder, and it really involves a particular part of the brain that's primarily affected, although other areas are too. You'll learn over time that the brain and the nervous system are really nervous systems are just one big circuit. They're not separate from each other. And when you change your brain, you change your nervous system. And if your central nervous system is being affected and there's a decline in its functionality as a result of having Parkinson's, which is what's happening, slow degeneration of the central nervous system, well, guess what? It's going to be work, but the possibility is very likely you'll be able to make changes in the nervous system, brain, same thing, really, according to science from research from a lot of different places, Harvard and Stanford. And so we're going to take you through some different science things, science-based, evidence-based things to show you the real basics about how it works conceptually, well, scientifically first, and then get into some concepts and have fun doing it. So, Russ, I want to go ahead with just a few slides on neuroplasticity. Is that cool?
Sounds good.
All right, gang. So let me share my slides. Oops. Hold on. All right. Let me know if you can see my slides, please, because make sure that I'm beginning from current slide. Okay. Can you see that slide all right?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good. So neuroplasticity is a thing. It's really cool. Thankfully, we have it. Certain areas of the brain are made to change, but not all areas, thankfully. The areas that control your breathing and your heartbeat and all that, well, you don't want them to change. You want to make sure that they're actually solid and working, doing their job. You don't want to have to think about, oh, I better make my heart beat now. And then, we can't do that. Otherwise, we'd never be doing anything else in our life except making our heart beat and making ourselves breathe. So we know that there are circuits that exist in all of our brains. Whenever you learn something, a circuit is developed, a circuit of neurons, nerves that brain nerves or neurons, they're the same thing, that end up connecting with each other and creating these pathways, if you will, neural pathways or neural circuitry. Now, in Parkinson's, what happens, and, Alzheimer's, dementia, other movement or neurological disorders, or even a concussion, there are a lot of different factors. So when we talk about this stuff, first of all, I also want to do a disclaimer here. Anything we teach today or ever is not meant to replace medical care or medications. It's meant to complement it. In other words, we work together with the medical community and whatever medications they prescribe, because there are benefits from all of this stuff, especially when we put it all together and work together with everything. All right. So in humans in general, basically, circuits can be compromised. All right. You may lose the ability to do something because of some reason, something that happened. Well, when one circuit is compromised, others can be developed. In fact, a lot of times they'll be developed without you even trying to, because that's how it works, right? If you cut off God forbid you cut off a finger, well, maybe it's your thumb. I don't know how that would be, but people have done that, and they still get through their life and they learn ways to use their other four fingers, because it's not the fingers doing the work, it's the nervous system brain connection. All right. So your brain just adapts. That's what it does. All right. But we can optimize this thing called neuroplasticity. We can retrain the brain to help us improve movement. We know that in Parkinson's, the number one cause of mortality is complications from a fall. Might not be the fall. Might be somebody falls down, has to go to the hospital, gets pneumonia, or maybe now COVID, and that's a trigger or a catalyst for how they pass away, unfortunately, and very sadly. So we want to avoid falling. Neuroplasticity is defined as the brain. Basically, a real simple version is the brain will customize itself to its experiences. It has the ability to reorganize and create new neural pathways so it can adapt, so you can adapt as it needs or as you need. As we mentioned, substantia nigra, the primary area affected in the brain in Parkinson's because of the loss of brain cells that are dying. And those brain cells, when they're functioning, they produce dopamine, a neurotransmitter. Well, this neurotransmitter chemical messenger is that's how we, largely how we move. So if we know we want to take a step, but we can't take the step because we're frozen, there's a good chance that the lack of dopamine, the lack of that chemical messenger neurotransmitter, is a result of not enough dopamine being activated or produced. And so now we have a problem. Okay, so you can take dopamine replacements, Cinemet, levodopa, carbidopa. There are other ones too, which I can't remember right now, but it's irrelevant. They're out there. And with that, that'll help to replace some dopamine and improve movement without even thinking about it. However, we can also take advantage of maximizing neuroplasticity because we know that the brain, the substantia nigra, which is a primal, very old in the evolution of humans, very old movement control center, it will outsource to the cerebellum primarily, and maybe the frontal area, to develop them as movement control centers as well. And the cerebellum already does some movement anyways. Moving forward, here are some examples. Has anyone been good at riding a bicycle the very first time they get on it? No, you crash. I had bloody knees. It was a mess. But eventually I was able to ride. So the more I rode, the more those electrical synapses, which are represented by the little bright flashes, if you will, in that image to the right. Well, those represent electrical synapses, and it goes a lot more into, there's a lot more detail to this. So the bottom line is each brain cell has like this stuff in it, this material in it that kind of gets almost like vomited out, and it travels to the next neuron, but the electrical synapse is what makes this stuff cause a connection. Okay, it goes deeper than this though. Okay, so the more we do the thing we're trying to learn to do, ride a bike, drive a car, learn a language, whatever, learn an instrument, anything at all, even right now, the reason I'm doing this up front is to maximize your learning experience today and always in the future. The more we use it, the more it fires together, the more they wire it together. But it's not quite that simple when we're not children anymore. For adults, it's a two-step process. So bottom line is we're going to teach, Russ will take you through some things today. Over the course of time in these episodes, we'll talk a lot of different concepts to help improve multitasking abilities. Really want to develop these things in our course, our sessions, when we're practicing them. Multitasking skills, movement, gait hacks, like learning how to walk better, tricking yourself into it, because it's all brain and central nervous system related, right? So as we're doing this stuff, all that stuff is changing through these synaptical firing patterns, which create new neural circuits or pathways. And so with that said, we are going to, this is something I was going to say, I forgot, but we'll just keep moving forward. I'll think of it eventually. So each thing that the more we do it, the more solid the connections become. All right. So, again, on a bike, well, I haven't ridden my bike in probably 3 months. It's snowy here. There's a foot of snow. It's very icy. And, I take Coumadin, so I'm a bleeder. If I fall down, and I could bleed out internally, and, no bueno. So in a couple of months when the roads are clear and it's relatively, not freezing, I'll get out there. 5 months of not riding, I'm not going to have to learn how to ride. I'll be rusty for about a minute, and then boom, you go. Because all those circuits, they were just on hold for a while, not firing. Boom, they're going to start firing, and bingo. It's just like riding a bike. Hence the saying, it's just like riding a bike. So we want to do cognitive training with the person living with Parkinson's or anybody. This applies to all humans. It's not just people with Parkinson's. Average age of my clientele, I figured it out, it's 74 years old. I have a few with Parkinson's, a couple with MS. The rest are just cognitive decline, one with Alzheimer's, many with dementia. All this stuff is for everybody. And some have no diagnosis. They're just trying to move better, make sure they keep moving for as long as they live. So if we can do some kind of thinking task while the person is moving, we stack things on now. We're multitasking. We want the benefits of what we do in the session, in these episodes, to transfer into activities of daily living. It's very, very important. All right. It's not just doing it for the fun of it. It's doing it for a purpose. Improve quality of life. So the more we use it, the more they fire together. I'm going through this slide real quick. This is regular training. These neurons firing patterns are reinforced. The more solid they are, the better we can perform these new skills. In fact, we'd like to have it get so that many of the things we do just become a reflex. You know you're really good at something. Well, that may not be actually true, but you know that you're probably on your road to being good at something when it becomes reflexive. You don't have to think about it anymore. Like if I get up and go and get a cup of coffee, I don't have to think about each step I take. It's a reflex. We learned it. Now, if walking is a problem, which it can be for some people, we need to relearn. We want it to get as close to possible as reflexive so that they're safer and, feeling more confident and improving quality of life. All right. We're almost done with neuroplasticity, but I want to get to the really good stuff because this is where you can dig in now and you can customize your learning experience. There's that darn typo. Okay, so brain cell number 2, that's me. Because brain cell number 1 is Russ. He's smarter than I am. I'm just learning. Anyway, so maximizing neuroplastic potential and how age plays a role. This is very important. When you're under the age of 25 is what science says. 25 or younger, give or take a year or two. Your brain is just going to change by itself so much more easily. I have a beautiful granddaughter. Now, she's only 3 months old. So her brain is very quickly developing, but, she still can't do so many things, right? I mean, but give her a year, give her 18 months, give her 2 years. She'll be talking, she'll be running around. I'll be getting my exercise just from chasing her around. It's going to be fun. Mere exposure to something can prompt the creation of new neural circuits, creation of neural circuits, not PF neural circuits. Okay. And the brain will customize itself based on experiences. So this is a good reason, or this would explain why when you meet somebody who speaks 2, 3 languages, maybe more, with no accent or hardly any accent, there's a really good chance they probably learned it when they were very, very, very young. Because the brain you don't even have to practice it. You're exposed to it and then you learn. Of course, you can also be taught more about it, but that exposure alone is going to bring you into speaking that language. Over the age of 25, we need to have an intention. When I say that, I don't mean like I don't want to offend anybody, but not like a new age intention and that's all cool, actually. Very cool. I'm talking about you want to have an intention, a good solid reason why it is that you want to be learning this new thing. Well, if you're not moving well, there's a pretty good chance that maybe movement is your thing. Maybe walking is the thing you want to learn how to do again or to do better. So you have to now practice what is called, and this is coined by Dr. Andrew Huberman from Stanford, the Huberman Lab, self-directed, you're doing it yourself, adaptive plasticity. All right, so you direct your attention. Here's proof that you can direct your attention. Right now, let's say you're sitting. I'm sitting, and I haven't thought about this until right now. How do your feet feel connected to the floor? Well, you were not thinking about that. I know this is a very simple thing, but think about that. Okay, how does my rear end feel on this chair? Not that good, because my other chair broke the other day in the middle of an interview, and I had to engage my core real quick before I went down. And then my legs are sore because I was kneeling for an hour talking to this gentleman because I didn't want to get up and stop the interview. So whatever. Bottom line is you can direct your attention. We can direct the changes in our brain by implementing 2 primary steps. Step number 1, extreme focus. Now, according to Harvard, Stanford, other places, I said 5 to 8 minutes, and here's 10:24. I promise I'm almost done, and then Russ takes over in 3 minutes, maybe. I'm going to time myself. And by the way, I forgot to say, if you have any questions, shoot them in the comments on Facebook, or put them in the chat box or Q&A box in Zoom if you're on Zoom with us. We have quite a few people here. Okay. Short bouts of extreme focus. Well, for some people, that could be 30 seconds, 20 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. An exercise that lasts a minute. Maybe you're jumping through something or walking through something and you're doing a cognitive thing, but it's chunking. It's extreme focus, then a little break. Kind of like you would normally do anyways, but you really want to focus on what it is that you're doing. This will all come into play when we remind you a lot moving forward. When you do this focus, you might feel the feeling of agitation, okay? Effort, kind of like, oh, this is tough, man. I don't really want to do it. That's because noradrenaline, or I'll just say noradrenaline, is being released, and it causes this feeling of agitation. So what you want to do, though, okay, as it causes the strain, is remember that to attach a reward to it, like, hey, this is me getting better. Hey, this is me playing the drums better. I see Terry is on. Hey, Terry, what's up, man? Man. I said, man. What's up, my friend? Her husband, Sergio, and her are both drummers, and they're both awesome musicians. Thanks for watching. Okay, and I need to practice my drums. I'm so inspired to play. I got to get the drums back out and I'll do my thing. But I'm going to have to focus when I do it, and it's going to cause strain, right? Physical strain, mental strain. That's because of this noradrenaline. Well, keep in mind, though, if this is you getting better during the feeling of strain, that's good, because acetylcholine is going to be released at the points where synaptic firing patterns or synapses are happening. Okay, this chemical marks the neurons for strengthening. So step 1 is hyperfocus. Step 1, hyperfocus. You don't need to know all this other stuff, but some people, like geeks like me, not that you're a geek, but I am one. So just speaking for myself, a geek like me, I am a geek. We want to know this stuff because I want to know, why did I feel this agitation? Okay, well, I do, but I'm learning now that when I go walk the dog yesterday, and I didn't want to go, it's like 15 degrees, but I walked. Felt good afterwards. It's me burning calories. It's me having time with the dog. It's me getting better, staying healthy, let's say. That's the reward to attach to the effort. Step 2 is the final step. Rest. Rest. It could be a 20-minute nap. It could be meditation. It could be yoga nidra. It could be going to sleep at night. The strengthening of the neural pathways and circuitry are best formed and strengthened during sleep. All right. Now, just the last slide, because I could go on for days, and I do, but I won't. We want to train both motor skills and cognitive at the same time. And this really just has to do with improving movement stability, multitasking, functionality, and help to reduce or eliminate falls, improve quality of life. Hola, Silvia Gabriela. ¿Cómo está mi amiga? In Monterrey, Mexico. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now and turn it over to Russ. But before I do, I'm also going to change the view. We're going to go to speaker view. So when Russ talks, I don't know who you see now, but I don't really care. It's not like I need to be seen. When Russ talks, you should be able to see him on a big screen. Maybe oh yeah. So when I talk, okay, I can see myself here. Not that I care. Remember, this is like the foundation for today and the rest. Okay. I don't really have anything else to share today other than that. I mean, I will interact some, right? But remember that all this stuff is designed to help us to improve quality of life. No matter who we are, we can always learn new things. We have to set an intention. We have to have a goal, and we have to focus, even if it's for like a minute, and then take a rest for a minute, another minute, whatever it is. Do what works for you, but take advantage of this. Anything you're doing, go for it. And Russ, it's all yours.
Okay. So, what we talked about when we were going to do this thing is it's going to be a loose format. And so I'd like to actually start off, we're going to bounce back and forth sometimes and comment on each other's stuff. So I'd like to make one last comment on the last thing Karl was talking about in neuroplasticity on rest. I want to just add a piece to that. And that's the rest that you take when you're training as well. Because sometimes I see this happen. If you're doing some sort of agility or multitasking type thing or balance, sometimes frustration sets in because you'll be repetitively trying it. So you're trying to balance on one foot and you could only do it for a few seconds. And then you go again, you get a few more seconds. And then you kind of hit this point where you're actually getting worse. So rest periods, when you're doing complicated tasks like that, will actually will actually help right at that time. So if you take a rest period after a little bout of just like trying to do some balance exercises, and you think you're getting worse, do something else, or just take total rest or whatever. And even if you just come back within a few minutes, you'll find that you might actually be better than your best effort on the last round. So that's something important to know. And also, even when you're just starting out on agility and neuroplasticity and multitasking type things, if it's something you're doing for the first time, you gotta realize that you're gonna suck at it at first. That's really the way it works. You're doing this to build new neural pathways, and you don't have them yet. So I just want to add that comment. So what I'm going to talk about is using progressions, mindfulness, and adaptive techniques to restore function. And the other thing I was going to talk about was maybe some gait hacks. I could actually maybe combine the two a little bit because really, same thing. Gait hacks was just really ways of showing you how to progress and improve your gait. So I could really kind of combine this. So what do I mean by restore function? Well, it can mean a lot of things. And as a person with Parkinson's, you may have several priorities, but I think one we have in common is at the point we're diagnosed, we probably have some movement dysfunction and Parkinson's symptoms. So that's one thing. But another thing is like you might have been an athlete before, you might have done a lot of gardening, had some sort of hobby or whatever it was that you really enjoyed. There might be things like that you want to get back to the level you were at or restore so you could, do it at all. So that's what I meant by that. And Karl just had an interview with our friend Andy Shea recently, and there was a point he brought up that that kind of resonated. I thought that was a pretty good point. He was talking about somebody who comes to him and they want to get back to being, being able to play a sport or do some sort of skill. And they think of point A and point B, getting from point A to point B, and point B is that skill. But for instance, somebody with Parkinson's, your starting point might be you have like a lot of movement dysfunction. You might have a lot of pain. So, what Andy said was sometimes there's too much focus on hitting the ground running and trying to get right to point B, it's okay to start, dabbling in that, in that skill. But what you really want to do as your first point is if you've got a lot of severe movement dysfunction, is your first step should be to not be at point A. So I thought that really resonated. I never heard it put that way. So step one would be not be at point A. So point A is you're in pain. You have a shuffle walk, and this and that. So, I mean, you got to crawl before you can walk, and you got to walk before you can run. So you should assess.
That is a good one.
And then,
that's a good one.
And then take it from there.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I love when he said that, because it made me think differently too about it,
Yeah. And, yes, sometimes you get carried away. It's great to be motivated to, get back to the way you were, but you have to sometimes take a step back when you have Parkinson's and say, what's my real goal? We all should have, to a certain extent, a common goal of reducing those Parkinson's symptoms. Doing other activities may help with that. Any movement is good. So I'm going to talk about adaptive techniques that you could use to restore certain function. And if somebody happens to pop in a question and says, they can't do something, I'll have time to even demo that if we happen to see your question before I'm done talking. But this word adaptation is a word I actually really like to describe a lot of things, because it can be used in so many ways to describe movement, how we address it, and how it affects us. So your body adapts to stressors put upon it, and that stress could be movement. Which could be a good thing. If the more you move, the better you'll move. But also it could be a lack of any demands put on your body. So it works the opposite way as well. So if you're sedentary, as they say, the body in motion tends to stay in motion. The body at rest tends to stay at rest. So if your body repeatedly is sedentary, your body will adapt in that way as well. And I call that adapting down. So eventually, if it's it's starting to get signals, hey, I don't need to walk because all I do is sit. Those functions will deteriorate, those moving functions. So you always want to be moving. And also, if your starting point is that you're in pain, I want to speak a little bit to try to encourage people to move and not be discouraged because of certain things. So most of the time or a lot of times when you're in pain, the fact that you have pain is not necessarily a good excuse not to move. A good excuse for when you're in pain not to move is if you have like a stress fracture, muscle tear, things like that. But in fact, if you're having some pain, movement is better than not moving. A lot of times, it gets the blood circulating. It starts activating muscles. If you've been sedentary a while, you start getting a lot of muscle imbalances. When you sit, your hips get extra tight and things like that. Why don't I just jump actually right to some techniques that you could use for adapting. So some general tips on when you're practicing movements and training and doing exercises is you could adjust certain parameters to challenge yourself. So that's another key word is challenge. So you want to challenge so your body could adapt. So, and there's a whole bunch of ways you could do that. One of the first things I'd like to say is when it comes to exercise, that you should make a habit of keeping track of what you're doing. So with something as straightforward as strength training, it's pretty obvious that you want to keep track of, the resistance you use, the number of repetitions, how many times per week you do the exercise and things like that. Some of the other notes you might make when you're monitoring is just anecdotal or just general. How do you feel like you're moving? Am I walking better? And things like that. And also you should also monitor changes you make, like medication, supplements, and things like that. I keep a journal. I'm not always good about it. I don't necessarily put things in every day. When something significant happens, sometimes I'll remember to put things in, like changing medications and supplements. And I've actually had a couple of problems that I've been able to track back to changes I made. sometimes, like for instance, when you take a supplement, you think or medication, you're on a certain medication regimen, you think it's not working, so you stop doing it. And then you start having problems down the line, and you look back at the history and you say, well, if things were working better and they got worse, right before, right after I changed, a certain medication regimen or supplement regimen or some eating thing, or adding or subtracting of food. So then you might go back and say, oh, well, maybe it was working. And then you add it back in and things are okay. So it's important to monitor what you're doing. When if you want to challenge yourself and you're starting off in a problem state, then first thing you might have to do is actually modify the movement, and you can modify the movement in several ways. You could slow it down, you can make it complex, or you can make it more simple. Again, as I said, if you're having dysfunction, you might need to make the movement more simple. You could change your body position. You could originally intend on doing a certain exercise, and that's not working right. So you could pick a completely different exercise. So let me throw in some examples as I go. For instance, a push-up. So there's modifications you could do for a push-up. So one of the ones I prefer to do is changing the position, changing the height where your hands are. The easiest being you could just be pushing off a wall, or you could be pushing off a countertop. You're higher up. I like that better than some of you may know the modification for a push-up where you're on your knees and you're doing a push-up that way. But I'd rather have you change position and have you be in a full plank position, because then you're going to engage your core. So that's one way of changing an exercise, changing position. People who are having trouble getting up and down from a chair, again, you could change the height of the chair or the height of what you're getting up and down from. So like if you're sitting, I see my couch over there. If you're sitting on, you could sit on like the arm of a couch, which is higher up than the chair, and get up and down from there, and then work your way down. So that's another way of changing. The number of repetitions and the load, which is the resistance, that's something typical in strength training. But one thing I like to point out that people don't necessarily do is they stick to a strict way of working out when it comes to strength training, where they know the key is to challenge their body, so their last repetition should be relatively strenuous without moving dysfunctionally. But if you're having a bad day, some people will just kind of like bail out of the workout if they can't do a minimum amount of repetitions. So what I suggest on that is you could do the same amount of work you did last time, even though your energy level might suck, but just add in rest periods. So, for instance, taking a set of barbell curls, say you did 11 reps on a set last time, and you want to get up to 12 or 13, and you're really feeling lousy, and you only do 9. There's nothing to stop you from you get at 9 and then waiting 15 seconds and doing a couple more. So then you get your 11 or 12 in. So that's another way you can modify taking rest periods. And this applies to classes too. So when you're in a group class, yes, you're supposed to push yourself, but if you're just starting out and it's at a level that you think you can't handle, when they say, okay, let's take a 30-second rest, and then they're going to go fast again for 30 seconds. When that 30-second rest is up and they start, for those first 5 or 10 seconds, maybe what you'll do is go slow. And nobody's going to notice. And even if they do, you shouldn't worry about it. But you just go a little slower, and you could ease your way in. You might do that in the beginning of the workout. You might start feeling better. And the next go round, when you do the exercise, you might be able to go more intense. So using rest periods is a good way of adapting. And then once you get to the point, Karl was talking about neuroplasticity, once you get to the point where you feel like you're gaining better skill, you could add in more movement, make the movements more complicated, either by adding in more movements or making a more difficult exercise. There's something also called micro-loading, which is basically using very, very small increments. So again, sometimes people get overexcited, which is great that they're exercising and they're pushing themselves, but make sure sometimes that you don't overdo it. For instance, if you're running and you're trying to increase distance, don't try to do you get up to the point where you do 1 mile, and don't try to do 3 miles the next day. You'll progress much better if you just go like a tenth of a mile at a time to start with, and then when you feel like you can handle it more, then you just increase the amount that you go up. Another way of modifying things is to slow down your movement. And this ties into the whole mindfulness thing. So I'll talk about mindfulness a little bit. So when you slow down your movement, one thing you should do is try to be more aware of how your body is changing weight, how your limbs are moving, how the muscles are integrating with each other, the sequencing of one muscle pushing off and the other one reaching forward, and everything that's happening within your body, and how you feel, how you're breathing. Also, be aware of your stress level. You want to try to be relaxed and calm during a workout. So there's actually some tricks you could use as far as that goes. One I use when I'm walking and running and pushing myself. Sometimes I purposely smile. So exercise is stressful sometimes. So if you're concentrating on, I'm getting out of breath and this is hard and everything like that, sometimes it takes you down a notch a little bit. So you just try to relax, and sometimes that helps a lot.
Hey Russ, I just want to interject for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is amazing. And I just want to bring up again, if people think about this for a minute, because it just struck me actually. I mean, I know this stuff and then sometimes I forget, but when you talk about being aware of, mindful of your movements, well, this is another example of directing your attention, right? So that we come back into similar to, how do your feet feel on the floor? How does your rear end feel on the chair? Well, how do you feel when you're moving, shifting your weight, doing things? That's self-directed attention. And I just want to point that out, because that's like a little bit of science for a second. There are brain circuits known as the here and now circuits, here and now circuitry. It's also the other way we hear of is being in the moment, being here now, being present. It's all that. And that's where we get the most activation, is through that attention that we can direct awareness here and now. Just had to say that.
No, that's great. Thanks. And this word mindfulness has become a big thing, and please understand that it's not an all or nothing approach, because sometimes people get into I'm going to do things a certain way, and that's the way to go, and that's the only tool in my toolbox I'm going to concentrate on. So mindfulness is like a conscious thing, but also use every tool at your exposure that's going to help you move. So some of those aren't mindful. Some of those are subconscious things or tricks. And in our workshops that Karl, that I do with Karl, we use certain tricks that'll either just stimulate your nervous system to help get you going or distract you. And I'll use an example there. I was doing my fast walk, and I started getting dysfunctional movement. My hip was stiff, my whole left side, my hip was stiff, and then my whole leg was stiffening up, my knee, I felt like my foot was jamming into the ground a little bit. So first thing I tried to do was relax a little bit. That wasn't working. So then I did a distraction technique. So what I did was I put my two fingers together like this, and I was swinging my arms, and I was just concentrating on this, my two fingers together. And I just kept walking, doing that. And I made sure I was focusing just on this. So what happened was two things. I distracted myself from that problem, and my brain just forgot about it and it went back to walking normally. And also there's certain parts of your body where the skin is very sensitive to touch and can be stimulated easy, and your palms are one, and your the bottom of your feet are another. So just that little pressure there too could have done it. So so that was that's kind of like a trick, and it's also it's stimulative, and it distracts you. So that same week, the same problem happened again, and I did this. Guess what my brain said is, you did that before. You can't trick me again. So I was like, oh, crap. I'm going to have to think of something new. So then I did this. I started walking like I was releasing something from my hand or grabbing. No, actually, I was grabbing something. I was pretending I was grabbing like Pokeballs, like Pokemon.
That's cool.
So I was going like this. And that worked. And then actually, I haven't had that problem since then. But I didn't. I tried. I did one of the other ones again. One of those two again, and it worked. But that's just what we call just basically a trick. I'm just kind of free associating here, so I'm just bringing up different concepts and example. I'll bring up another one that is. Not that this is not a mindful movement. I tried to do something mindfully and it didn't work. And it was basically because, the Parkinson's was just too, the Parkinson's symptom was just too prominent. So people with Parkinson's sometimes lose their arm swing. And I was walking, I don't know, I guess I was running out of dopamine, but I have these, when I'm on this borderline where I feel like, I might be time to bring my, take another med. Sometimes I could get out of that for a while, either with relaxation or just some other trick to get myself moving. So my arm swing wasn't working, and it's got to be in sync with your legs. So I was trying to keep a big arm swing, but then when I did that, my legs weren't moving together, and that's together with it in sync, and that's a very complicated movement. So what I did there was, I said to myself, that big arm swing, it's just too complicated to do. So this is an example of simplifying a movement. And I simplified the movement and then kind of like worked my way up. So what I did was I just said, okay, walk. And I know just the nature of walking, there's a little bit of rotation that happens when you walk. I know that even if I don't think about swinging my arms, it's gonna happen a little bit naturally. So I was walking, and just this little bit of swinging with very little amplitude was happening. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be satisfied with this for a while, but I'm just gonna kind of feel. This was a combination sort of this was a little conscious and subconscious, but it was conscious at first, and it brought me back to subconscious. So I'm feeling it at first. This was conscious. Now I'm like saying to myself, oh, I know how this feels. I feel my fulcrum is on my shoulder and it's swinging here. So it's in sync with my feet. I'm saying to myself. So now all I need to do is just kind of just increase it gradually. And I just increased it gradually without forcing it, without really, using my heavy musculature. I was just really just thinking of a pendulum motion, just letting that pendulum swing more and more. And then it came back. So that was conscious. When I got to the point when it came back, then I let it be subconscious. I'm like, I'm good now. Put a smile on my face, and then off I went. So that's some examples. And then you'll find some of your own. So that's why this whole mindfulness thing is great, because it puts you more in touch with your body. And this is something that John Pepper, a guy who's famous for, fighting back his Parkinson symptoms and not being on medication.
Yeah.
And he does this fast, mindful walking. And I'd be interested to know how much he used just all mindfulness, or if he used a combination of some other things. I bet we could even probably, people could probably even improve on his technique. I don't know that it'll work for everyone. Like we always say, everybody with Parkinson's is different. You have rigidity, and you have tremors, and you have all different symptoms. So, it could depend on where you're at.
So Russ,
I just saw a question pop up. So why don't we take a time out and see if there's questions?
Sure. I'm just going to mention that I think, and I'm not sure, we got to look it up. I'll post in the group on Facebook later. I think Pepe has a new book out last year. Also, this book called The Brain's Way of Healing Itself. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The Brain's Way of Healing by Dr. Norman Doidge talks about, actually, it's one of the best chapters on Parkinson's. I'll show it again in a minute, folks.
Actually, I think it's in the other book, Karl, his other book. Because I have his other one, and it's got it. Unless both of them had it, but maybe both of them have a chapter on John Pepper. I'm gonna get.
So I'll tell you in a second, but he's mentioned in both books. But there is, let's see, Pepper.
This is the other one.
Yeah, The Brain's Way of Healing Itself. I'm sorry. Oh, The Brain That Changes Itself is the first book.
Right.
This is the first book. And then The Brain's Way of Changing.
Oh, you just.
I'm sorry. The Brain That Changes Itself. Then we got The Brain's Way of Healing. And Pepper is.
Okay, yeah, that is the one that I have. Okay.
Yeah, and so this is the book, the second book by Doidge, Brain's Way of Healing.
Oh, okay. It's the same one I have. It's just different cover. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that talks a lot about basically. So I'm sorry, folks. I swear, I'm not using this as an advertising platform. But also, if I don't say this, maybe somebody would have wanted to know. That book I just showed you, Brain's Way of Healing, has a great chapter on Parkinson's. And it talks about everything. Well, not everything. It talks about mindful walking. John Pepper, South Africa. And he actually, after 30-something, maybe 40 years, had new brain imaging done. And maybe it was sooner. I don't know. And his brain had changed so much that they actually thought he didn't have Parkinson's. That's in the book. It's really interesting. This book is my book. Now, I also talk about mindful movement in this, and I will admit that I've never had an original idea in my entire life. If you want this, go to parkinsonsregenerationtraining.com, and you'll see a link right there on the front page, parkinsonsregenerationtraining.com. And if you want it in Spanish, let me know, because Laura can send it to you if you're in Mexico, because right now it's not available in Mexico other than Kindle on Amazon in Spanish. But this mindfulness, this mindful movement, it kind of falls in and spills over into another thing we talked about, which spills back into this, which is here and now circuits, being present, being in the moment. Now, I'm almost done. The thing is that sometimes we don't know what it is we need to be knowing. So that's why we are here, is to help you to learn things that you may not have thought of otherwise, like rotation, trunk rotation, when your reciprocal arm swing, right? You don't swing your right arm when your right leg moves. That's not how it works. The body doesn't work like that, unless there's some really weird problem. You swing your opposite arm leg, and there's a little hip rotation, a little trunk rotation. And is your stride symmetrical? Is your arm swing symmetrical? Is one arm swinging more than the other? And if one is swinging less, you would want to maybe try to improve or increase that range of motion. So these are things that as we go through time with this Neuro Bros Show, we'll bring things to light. And I'm sure you'll bring things to light too, to us that we didn't think of, where we can all learn from each other, that will put us into the mindset of, oh, I didn't know that. So now that I know it, I can actually direct my attention to that. And I'm sorry, Russ, I interrupted, but
that's okay.
We have
so what I'm thinking is that maybe we should we'll cover gait hacks another time. I mean, we'll cover another time. We'll cover like the stimulative type things, but I could talk about maybe 2 assistive type things you could do. So with walking, one way you can help your walking is with walking poles, and there's a company called Urban Polling that what's her name, Marissa? Was it?
Mandy Shintani. Shintani's in Vancouver. Okay. She's the co-founder and inventor of Urban Polling. It's like a Nordic walking stick, but the quality is way better.
Yeah, these are actually a different brand. These are Black Diamond, but that's
those are good. Those are great too.
Walking poles. I like it. It's better than using a cane or a walker because it's actually helping, encouraging that arm swing, and adds a little extra exercise, makes it like a full body exercise. And then the other one is, when I did that walking, you didn't see the rest of the ground, but you can see now. There's these dots on the ground. You could just, targets are another way to assist yourself in walking. And this works great because it kind of simplifies things for your brain. You could take a person who's got a shuffle walk, and you just ask them to walk on the dot, and they'll be shuffle walking, and then all of a sudden they walk on the dots.
Yeah.
And it's normal. And this could also, depending on how far apart you have the dots, could also help you with stride length, because you could keep increasing the distance between them. And that's a little trick. So some of these tricks we talk about, some of them may be temporary or something that you can't do all the time. So the dots are an example. You're not going to have targets, when you're out and about, but it could help give you more confidence and kind of help you train your body to walk better just by using that little trick of walking on the targets. We'll cover all this stuff another time because I think we're running out of time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few minutes I can hang. So
there was a question though.
I want to address this with just my words and then have you say your words. I think it's from Leona. Okay. Yeah. Do you think that movement becomes difficult in the first place because we overthink it? I would ask what you mean by that. And here's why I ask that. Is it movements you've already been doing that are becoming more difficult, or maybe you're trying to learn something? In either case, but especially if you're learning something, a lot of times, that's just for, I still work as a guy working with people all the time. I'm always trying to find out what kind of learner are they? Because we have some fitness and movement people on watching as well. Not just, we have a lot of diversity here, so this is really cool. So I need to find out what kind of learner they are and what kind of cueing works, because I am famous for causing people to overthink. So this is a task on my end where I need to get better at it, and I'm always looking for simple cues, because otherwise people do overthink. When you overthink, things are just so awkward. Or they can be so awkward. And she's asking because when she experiences freezing in the moment before it happens, I can preempt it. For example, going through a doorway. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So Russ, I'm sure you can answer it a lot better and more simply than I can. We have so much to talk about, but in future episodes, we'll definitely talk more about targets, because if you have akinesia is actually when you're standing and you want to take a step and you have lost temporarily the control over voluntary movement, like, I can't go. The target can really help with that. It could be any kind of target. So, and I have one question for Laura, if you would just don't mind answering in the comments here on Facebook. I know you have a set of these polls. How do you like them? And I'll report that back to people when I see. Russ, what do you think about Leona's question? What advice do you have?
Yeah, I think it is because when you do overthink it hurts. And this is one of those cases where I think there's a lot of different tricks to get out of freezing. Sometimes you could sway side to side and take a step sideways. I actually do that a lot. I get freezing when I'm off sometimes. I have a technique that I do in my dance program that I actually use now without music. I have a rhythmic movement and dance class that I taught in the workshops we do, but also at my local YMCA here, and I taught it at PD Summer School with Dr. Laurie Mishley. But I do a bunch of different dance rhythms, and in this case, it's tango that I use for control, stability, and it could help with freezing too. And what you're basically doing is instead of walking, walk, you're walking, stopping. So you learn to control your walking, because I think what goes along a lot of times with freezing is you start trying to move quick, and you also with freezing you get festination of gait, and festination is when your feet start like stuttering real quick, and sometimes that ends up making that kind of like jettisons you forward, and then you're falling. So I don't know if we have time to cover it now, but I could do that tango walk maybe another time. Or if you have time now, I could show it.
How about we go 10 more minutes? You show that, but in the meantime, after that, or at some point before we're done, Laura has a question.
Okay.
How might somebody overcome or help improve going through a doorway? Because that's a famous kind of oftentimes a thing. You get to the doorway or the threshold or a surface change on the floor, and like, slow down. You don't want to fall. You can answer that whenever you want, but I just want to make sure we get that question out there.
Okay. And also I was just thinking of with walking too, one thing that's good to be aware of is the do's and don'ts, or the things you want to try to navigate away from. You want to be safe, so you could do this at first. But for instance, like grabbing onto furniture and grabbing onto things a lot. Yeah, you don't want to fall, but you want to try to practice, put together some sort of routine where you gradually stop relying on grabbing onto things. Because what happens is, and looking down is another, looking down at your feet. What happens if you do those two things, you're not looking straight ahead and you're grabbing onto things, your body is starting to disable its proprioceptive abilities, and proprioception is your body's awareness of the environment around. And it's best that you walk being aware of your environment, and not sort of, if you're grabbing onto things and everything, you just sort of changing the environment to kind of like an unnatural environment. You're not going to have that all the time. You're not going to be able to grab onto things when you're walking down the street and stuff like that. So that's
one thing I meant to say that I didn't say in the beginning, which I always say at the beginning of a workshop, a live one, is we want to challenge ourselves, but we don't want to kill ourselves or hurt ourselves. So we need to be safe, but still get outside that comfort zone into an area that where we have a backup plan so we don't fall down. We can grab something, but push yourself, because that's the only way you're going to develop, let's say, improve your abilities to move, multitask, whatever. Safety first, challenge yourself sensibly. Okay.
So we're going to do the Tango Walk. So you could do this even without music. It's basically or Tango Lunge. It's to teach you control. If you get down to the lunge thing, it's also teaching you stability and training stability in your hip. So I'm going to go back and forth, walking back and forth, and it's going to be done to a music. And I like doing it to a tango beat, because tango has this really heavy accented beat where we're going to do the walk, and it's going to be real slow. Just follow along with me. You'll see. And you could take the same concept and just kind of say it to yourself when you're freezing, when your body wants to freeze or get a fast gait. Just walk slowly. So I'm just going to put on some music. Sometimes I use traditional music. Sometimes I use pop music. I'm going to go the pop music route here. Go back to the 80s. And there's a lot more to this. So I'll just do a couple of steps. You could do this also. You could walk in a controlled manner, in like you're walking on a tightrope. There's a lot of things you could do. You could do swivels, and maybe I'll throw them in. You could just see what I'm doing. And again, if you're unstable, you could do this with poles or set up a few chairs that you could grab onto it first. So let me bring this up. Here it is. Turn on my little.
All right. I stepped away for a second. I'm sorry. Everything cool?
Are you there?
I'm here.
You could hear me, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me get the music going.
All right.
Here we go. Okay. Let's see. Did that sound okay? I should be connected to Bluetooth, actually.
I can't hear any music.
No, disconnected. Hold on.
No problem.
Connected to my phone. So that's fine.
Laura, by the way, Laura, Russ will have probably more advice than I will on this, but one of the things while he's getting the music going,
I'm ready.
In regards to going through a doorway, sometimes having targets on the floor, could even be little pieces of tape spaced out at what is a safe yet normal, let's say, stride for yourself, stride length, that you can use as targets. And you don't want to always be looking at the floor, but sometimes it's necessary to start looking at the floor so that you can get through that doorway. Targets can be one remedy to help. Go for it, Russ.
Okay, just follow along. Here we go. Can you hear the music okay?
No music.
Here we go. Can you hear it now?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. We can hit a harmony. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, go. Walk. Walk. Keep hesitation. Walk. And walk. Go back. Start that again. And go. Again. Do a lunge. 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 Right. The other way. Sometimes it's harder to do things slow than it is to do fast.
We can't really hear the music. I don't know why. Can't really hear the music, but I can see you. For some reason, the music's getting blocked out.
I'm sorry, I heard you talking.
Sometimes the music's funny with these things.
Was it not working?
Yeah, just it was kind of broken up. It's no problem though, because maybe we can figure it out for next time as far as making music come through not loud and clear. But even the movements themselves, are good to know.
Usually it works when I just put the speaker by the mic, but we'll play with that. Okay. No, sorry about that if it didn't work.
No, don't worry.
So we'll cool. we'll pick up on more gait stuff.
This is season 1.
I'm gonna
Episode one.
I'm gonna do my whole program one day in the next few weeks. I'll invite everybody.
Good.
It's like an hour program with all the dance stuff. I had a little, when we wrap up, I'm going to finish up for now, unless somebody else had another question, but I had a little poem I wanted to read too, to close out if you want.
Oh, sure. You know, I just want to answer one question here from an anonymous attendee. Have we heard of FND, functional neurological disorder? Yes, and it's actually interesting. I had one person with this once, and I've only met one person with it. It's usually not congruent or, let's say, associated with a neurological disorder, even though it has neurological disorder in the name. It's kind of weird, but it's involuntary movements, spasms, jerks, and twitching of the body. I think probably next week would be a really good time to go over waking up the nervous system in the brain, because I say it won't take long. So if I talk about it, it'll take like 20 minutes. And that's probably real, because I would have said 10 minutes today on what I talked about, and I went for 20. So, Russ, maybe you want to talk about it. You're more succinct than I am, but I tend to go off on these scientific tangents. But the bottom line is waking up the nervous system through plantar skin and palm skin and other ways. There can be vibration therapy and other things that might be helpful with this, but everyone's different, so nothing's ever guaranteed. But there's a good possibility some of this can be helped to a degree. And then I think it's the same person, asked, Russ, I struggle to turn right on my bike. I think neuroplasticity would help. I like the message. It's like the message doesn't get through the arm to the hand, and it feels powerless. Do you have any ideas?
Right.
Well, mindfulness, being aware of that is a good step. Whoever that is, thank you for chiming in, because that's the first step, is knowing about it. And then maybe I'll just say, without really thinking too much, directing your attention towards it, maybe practicing it in an environment where if you fall, you won't get hurt. I don't know if it's on like grassy area or just somewhere where if you fall, you're more safe. I say that laughing because I dumped my bike last year, my new mountain bike, and that was interesting. But anyways, don't fall, but maybe practicing it. That's all I can think of at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, you could practice, maybe you're overcompensating with your left side. So maybe you can even practice, maybe not even on a bike, bringing in that right arm tight and kind of angling a little bit and loosening up on your left hand or whatever, because maybe you're gripping too hard with the left or whatever. And also maybe looking in the direction you're turning might help as well. I'd encourage that.
Good point. That's a good point. They always say if you don't look where you're going, you're less likely to get there. But that's actually true. Looking to where you're going is so important.
Oh, and Leona said, would visualization help? It's certainly worth a try. Visualization helps with a lot of things. Visualizing the movement, or even just
that's a good
lying down.
I'm glad you said that, Leona. Thanks, because there's actually a golfer. I don't think he's still alive anymore. His name is Ben Hogan. So back in the day, he was really well-known golfer, and he was a prisoner of war for years. And how he said he got through being a POW was thinking about the game of golf, which he loved so much and he was so good at. So, wait, I'm trying to think if this is the right story.
He was actually playing. So,
yeah, so he visualized and he was trying to actually feel every single thing, from the grip on the club to the looking at the ball to how high the ball is up on the tee when he's teeing off, and the rotation, and then boom, following through how hard he had to hit, which driver or iron he had to use to get it to where it had to go, and eventually, of course, in the hole. When he came out of POW. And I think I've got the story right. Here's what I know for sure. When he got on the golf course, he was picturing he played better than anybody else, and he hadn't played in years. There's another person who was blind who actually did a similar thing, and he challenged somebody. This is all visualization. That's why I'm saying it. This blind gentleman challenged another gentleman who could see to play golf. He beat him because they did it at night, like at midnight. And it's a wild story, but it's a true story. Visualization can be very powerful. I'm so glad you said that. I wouldn't have thought of it. Part of it's COVID brain. Part of it is I think about too many other things sometimes.
Yeah, visualization is great. Cool.
All right.
We're gonna wrap up soon. You
yeah.
Do I have time to read my little poem?
Yes, please. Yeah, read that.
So
please.
I used to dabble in poetry a little bit, but and you'll find that people with Parkinson's will say the same thing. I didn't used to do this so much before I had Parkinson's, but now I do, and it's some artistic thing. Our friend Laura does some amazing artwork now.
Yeah.
Totally amazing. And I write a lot of poems. Sometimes they're insightful and serious, and sometimes they're more have more humor in them or whatever. This one's, I guess, more serious. And Karl, the title is kind of tied into music a little bit, because when I thought of the title, I was thinking of a particular jazz song, "A Night in Tunisia."
Oh yeah, sure. I know that one very well.
Dizzy Gillespie did it, and I don't know if
Dizzy did it.
Yeah,
I used to play that a lot in different bands.
So the poem is called "A Night in Dyskinesia." Okay, so sometimes your feet will shuffle, your voice may crack and muffle. The disease will try to own you, like the times you get dystonia. Look out for dyskinesia, rigidity might freeze you. Don't let it be so frightening, like a grip that's slowly tightening. Believe in better days, clear answers through the haze. Set goals, be fearless, love and learn, for a better life that you yearn. I don't think that it is easy, and my rhymes, they may sound cheesy. But if you make a choice, I hope you listen to my voice. Choose action, good thoughts, not wasteful fear. Embrace life and people that you hold dear. Let's rise together each day, each year. You need support? I'll lend an ear. Find your calm, your fight, your light. And to you, dyskinesia, I say goodnight.
Wow, man, that is fantastic. We should all give a round of applause for that one. Yeah, that's really, really sweet, man. I love that.
Thank you. And I enjoyed. I
just wanted to just mention Laura. She does do some amazing art, and this image that she drew of a brain is going to be, along with this, on the cover of my next book coming out. Well, it was going to be this week, but I had COVID and it really set me back cognitively. It's beautiful artwork. It's going to be featured on the covers. You got to get to know Laura. I'll have her on as a guest at some point here. So we don't know when we're doing this again, but we know it's going to be soon. Maybe this week, maybe next week. We don't have a regular schedule, so I'm sorry for that, folks. We at least wanted to get started. Let's see how the feedback is. And we've had some really nice feedback already. Thank you, Leona. Yeah. Isn't it great? That was a great poem. I love that. I want to thank everybody for watching and joining us. Feel free to share. If you're not in our group on Facebook, it's called the Neuro Bros Show. BROS. Neuro Bros Show. 4 words. Request to join. We'll let you in. Share. Bring more people in. Our goal is to reach as many people as possible, to help as many people as possible. That is the reason I exist. And Russ is on this mission with me. Together, we can accomplish great things. And I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you, Janet. Oh, by the way, Janet, that I saw your comment. I meant to mention that visualization. Yes. So that's great. If you ever have questions, shoot them over to Russ or me, and we will announce plenty in advance when the next episode will be. I'm excited by it. We have so much to share.
it was fun. I enjoyed that. And if people have ideas for things they'd like us to talk about, that's great.
Yeah, please. And this is being recorded. It's going to be thrown up on YouTube. So I'll post the YouTube on my personal Facebook page, the Parkinson's Empowerment Training page, the group page for Neuro Bros Show, so that you know where to get this playlist as episodes accumulate. All right. And Russ, mi hermano de otra madre, my brother from another mother in Espanol, right? Thanks, man. You're awesome. As always, you were awesome.
You too, man.
All right, everybody. Russ, I'll be in touch in a little while today. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Russ. Yep. See you all soon. Ciao. And remember, 2 things. Keep moving.
That's right.
Russ said today about moving. A body that stays at rest or at rest tends to stay at rest. You know, that is true for humans. When I'm on the couch, I want to keep sitting on the couch. I swear it's true. If I get up and move, I tend to want to move. Keep moving. And the last thing is stay positive and test negative for COVID. All right, over and out, gang. See you all soon. Bye-bye.